Black Site. Written by Savage Tempest. Narrated by Tim Page. Chapter 1. Serene tried clawing out of the darkness. It was like trying to wake up from a nightmare when your body refuses to respond. Had she passed out? She felt nauseous, and her head was throbbing. "You okay, Warden? You look kinda bad." Serene forced her eyes open. The harness kept her from tumbling from her seat. The only thing more humiliating than that would be if she were drooling. Serene forced herself to sit up straight, exhausted by the effort. Since when is FTL travel hell, and why were the emergency lights on? The prisoner who had just spoken to Serene continued staring at her. Dryden something. 10 prisoner seats, 4 of them empty, and the Tangeli gets the one right in front of her. Dryden was a hulking Tangeli with a face that looked like it had been melted by acid. Groans from the other prisoners let Serene know that she wasn't the only one suffering from the jump, but Arc Gate travel had never bothered her before. "Beaumary?" Serene struggled to uncouple herself from her harness. "You okay?" "Yeah, I think so. What happened?" "You got drunk and fell asleep," laughed one prisoner. Had to be Casimir Trey. He was the only Garixian prisoner on this transport and not heavily muscled like most of the other prisoners, which was another thing wrong about this assignment. Prisoner transports to the Ilaria penal colony always carried full loads. Serene slapped her left thigh to check for her laser pistol and stood on unsteady feet. Dryden chuckled. Nice that some people found this situation funny. Jareth Moreau was watching her too. Like Serene, he was more Newtian. Unlike her, he wasn't half Garixian. Serene's aqua blue skin came from her mother. Serene pretended to look right through Moreau and scanned the transport's cabin. The 6 prisoners appeared to be still magnetized to their chairs. Beaumary stood up and scowled at the prisoners facing him. "I'm going to check the cockpit," Serene said as she slapped the cockpit release button. The door didn't open. Serene tried again. The Tangeli laughed. Serene pressed the intercom button, which was centimeters above the door release panel. "Lieutenant Emile, Corporal Sif, do either of you hear me?" No answer. An avalanche of thoughts flooded Serene's mind, none of them good. This situation was quickly devolving from inconvenience to life-threatening. "Give me a hand, Beaumary." The corporal clomped over to Serene's side of the prison transport. He had the same magnetic boots as her, but somehow he managed to make it sound like a Grayson trying to catch up to its herd. Beaumary positioned himself on the other side of the door and grunted as they both tried to pry the door open. Serene's space gloves made it hard to get a good grip on the crevice splitting the door. Plus, she was starting to sweat under her armpits. Cheap spacesuit. The stupid Tangeli still laughing at her was annoying too. Though she should be grateful. At least she and the other wardens had spacesuits, and their helmets were in reach. Their prisoners, not so lucky. "Oh, let Acid Face open it already." "Shut the hell up, Mornudian scum!" Serene turned, grateful for the rest. Lucky for Jareth Moreau, Dryden was magnetized to his seat thanks to the metal bands on his wrists, just like him. "He's right," said Beaumary. "Let the Tangeli do it." "All right." Serene stepped away from the cockpit door and drew her pistol. Beaumary entered a code into his datapad. The lights on Dryden's armrest turned red. "You," Serene pointed her weapon at Dryden, "open that door and don't do anything stupid." Serene stepped back and gave the Tangeli a wide berth, which wasn't that much since the transport cabin held a max of 13 people comfortably. Dryden raised his wrists and looked at his metal bracelets. The bands were still on, but now he could move his hands freely. He took a moment to glower at Moreau. Serene was ready to shoot him if he attacked. Moreau smiled back at the Tangeli like he didn't have a care in the world. "Move it," Beaumary hissed, stepping away from the door, his laser pistol aimed at Dryden's massive chest. Several of the other prisoners shouted questions and complaints, but Serene ignored them. Dryden took his sweet time getting up. It took him only seconds to open the door. "Thank you," said Serene, meaning it. "Now sit." Dryden's black eyes narrowed. For a moment, Serene thought he might be stupid enough to attack her. He could crush her easily, possibly even before Serene got off a shot, but not before Beaumary put a hole in his back. The Tangeli returned to his seat. Beaumary tapped on his datapad and activated Dryden's chair, magnetizing his wrists and boots once again. "Well done, Warden." Moreau gave Serene a crooked smile. It wouldn't work on her. Mornutian males weren't as sexist as Garixian wardens, but they came with their own set of problems, and one look at a muscled Mornutian with a smile like the one Moreau was giving her screamed run for the hills, especially when they have a prison record. Serene slid her pistol into her holster. "Keep an eye on them, Beaumary." She stepped slowly through the door, still not feeling quite herself, though better than when she first woke up. Arcgate travel usually didn't give her more than a queasy stomach. This was new, different. So much for her first assignment as warden captain being an easy one. The only reason why she got this stupid assignment was because she was female. Sexist jerks. 1 meter ahead of her was a second door leading directly to the cockpit. A security redundancy that hopefully wouldn't get them killed. If this one didn't open, then she would need Dryden again, which is why she ignored regulations and didn't close the first door. She would look even more ineffectual if she had, and then had to come back and tell the Tangeli to open yet another door. Thank the universe the second door opened without a hitch. Red emergency lights bathed the cockpit just like the cabin, but the air tasted stale. Serene expected to see Emile and his co-pilot knocked out. What she saw was almost as bad. Emile and Corporal Sif were hunched over their consoles, frantically punching flashing buttons and flipping through hollow screens. "What's going on here?" Serene asked. Emile and Sif ignored her, silencing buzzing alerts and looking even more frazzled than before. The prison transport had no windows or ports, even in the cockpit. That security thing again. This time, for the unlikely case of someone attacking them so they can rescue some loser prisoner. "Lieutenant Emile," Serene said through clenched teeth, "I asked you a question." Emile looked over his shoulder, a sneer marring his otherwise stunning face. Valeranins were beautiful to a fault. Their entire bodies looked like sky-blue liquid poured into a glass statue. "Can't you see we're busy?" Emile turned back around and continued whatever he was doing. Corporal Sif looked up, though, worry etched on her aqua-blue features. Their skin was the same, but like most Garixians, Sif had no hair on her head. Serene did, from her father's side, but she kept it very short. Sif and Emile weren't wearing their helmets as per regulations. Serene couldn't blame them for that. Issue helmets were so uncomfortable and hampered peripheral vision. However, she could blame them for ignoring her. She was the ranking warden on the ship, and it was her responsibility to get control of this situation, even though she could barely control her stomach. Emile didn't seem to notice Serene move closer. The cockpit was cramped after all. Barely enough room for 2 piloting stations and a weapons console. Serene pressed her laser pistol at the back of Emile's neck. "Lieutenant, I asked you a question. Answer me right now or this ship will be down one pilot." Serene pressed the nozzle of her pistol harder into his neck. "All right already." Emile threw up his hands dramatically, then slowly swiveled his chair around to face her. Serene stepped back slightly and to the left, just in case he decided to try something they'd both regret. "I'm listening." Corporal Sif stared at Serene, wide eyes in shock. Emile, however, plunged into insulted pilot mode. "May I put my hands down?" "No one told you to put them up." It was obvious that Emile didn't think much of her. Serene wasn't sure if it was because of her gender or her new rank. "Report." Emil looked at Sif before meeting Serene's eyes. As far as we can tell, something went wrong with the Arc Gate exit vector. We've exited into the wrong star system.
Which system?
Corporal Sif checked the nav console.
The Hersu system. It's close to our border with the Cyrax, so no one wants to live here.
This didn't make any sense. Arc Gates never, well, hardly ever, made mistakes. It had to be their ship, or the crew.
Did you check the ship's coordinates?
Emil folded his arms. What do you think?
I think I'd like to pistol whip you.
Serene didn't say it, though.
How far back to the nearest Arc Gate?
Sif checked her nav dashboard.
3 AUs.
Damn. It would take over 2 days to return to the gate at sublight speed. 2 days with Emil and this bunch of prisoners? Serene didn't want to bet they'd make it back in one piece.
Set a course back to the Arc Gate, sublight factor 3.
We can't, said Sif, looking worried.
Not without replacing the deuterium fuel rods. Which we don't have on board, I presume.
Emil smiled. Now I see why they made you a captain. Quick on the draw, aren't you? Instead of smacking the smile off Emil's perfect face and getting a write-up, Serene addressed Corporal Sif.
Any planets that have deuterium tritium?
Sif spun around in her chair and worked her console for what seemed like 10 minutes when it was only 2. Being cooped up with a loaded gun like Emil put Serene on edge. This entire situation put her on edge. But she was responsible for everyone on this ship, even jerks like Emil.
LiDAR readings detect deuterium on the 4th planet satellite.
Great. Plot a course for us there, Corporal.
Yes, ma'am.
A klaxon alarm howled to life, making Serene want to clamp her hands over her ears.
What's wrong now?
Emil spun back around in his chair. Are you seeing what I'm seeing, Sif?
Afraid so.
What? Serene did her best to keep her voice level.
What's happening?
Emil looked over his shoulder at Serene. Scans show a Reaper destroyer has just entered the system. Chapter 2. Reapers. The queasiness in Serene's gut morphed into fear. She swallowed hard and forced calm into her breathing. Hopefully before Emil caught the dread in her eyes. There was no point in giving him more ammo to use against her.
Send a distress signal to headquarters. Activating distress signal.
Corporal Sif's voice was shaky, but at least she knew how to follow orders.
Can we make it to Hersu's moon?
No, Emil said, his fingers still darting across the helm's dashboard. Not before the Reapers blow us into space dust. Corporal Sif spun her chair slightly toward Serene.
We're a lot closer to Hersu than the Reaper destroyer, but with our deuterium rods corrupted, the Reapers will most likely be able to catch up to us. Unless...
Unless what, Corporal? Reapers were worse than pirates, same lack of morals, but the Reapers took death and destruction to a whole nother level. Sif's eyes shifted from Emil to Serene with guilty hesitation, but it was Emil who voiced the solution. We need to clear the cabin. As in, space their prisoners.
Not gonna happen. They're criminals, but they're people too, and our responsibility. Find another way. I'll be right back.
Stepping back into the cabin was like stepping into a cage of wary beasts. So much for prisoners being people. Beaumary stood on the opposite side of the cabin, laser pistol in one hand and his shock baton in the other. The prisoners had gone oddly silent. They knew something was wrong, even with the klaxon no longer screaming danger. Serene didn't sugarcoat it.
We're in trouble. Reapers.
That got a reaction even from Moreau. There was only a slight tightening around his mouth, but still a reaction. Maybe he wasn't the sociopathic killer his record made him out to be. Serene grabbed her helmet.
Beaumary, helmet on, harness up. What about us? Where's our spacesuits?
That had to be the calcinite. Serene couldn't see her, since the calcinite, along with 3 other prisoners, was facing Beaumary toward the rear of the ship. But Tara was the only female prisoner on the ship. Not many females get sent to the Ilaria penal colony, so she had to do some pretty bad things to wind up with this bunch. Serene fitted her helmet on, double-checking the vacuum seal readouts on her visor. The sound of her breathing was now loud in her ears, one more reminder of their bleak situation. "You didn't answer her question," said the Tangeli, the threat clear in his voice. Serene ignored him and headed back to the cockpit. She could deal with the prisoner's concerns later, if there was a later. Emil and Corporal Sif were now helmeted and hunched over their consoles once again.
"Any chance they haven't seen us yet?"
"What do you think?"
"I think I asked you a question, Lieutenant."
Sif answered, sparing Serene from having to relieve Emil from duty.
"They're on an intercept course, Captain."
Serene suspected as much, but she had to ask before they did something stupid, like she was going to do right now. Serene sat down on the weapons console seat and strapped herself in. The console was cramped into the corner next to Sif and was a quarter size of the helm and nav consoles. She called up the weapons menu. "What the hell are you doing?"
"Mind your own goddamn business, Lieutenant, and get us to that moon."
"You're wasting the ship's energy. It's not like our turrets will even give that destroyer a nosebleed." Emil knew damn well that the transport's fuel reserves and weapon systems were on two separate power sources. He was just being a dick. Great. Her first mission as a captain, and she has to deal with Reapers and a subordinate on the verge of mutiny, plus get them back to Alliance space alive.
"They're trying to cut us off from Hersu's moon, Captain,"
Sif reported, her voice strained. Serene's dashboard showed the Reaper destroyer gaining on them.
"Do something, Emil."
She expected an acerbic retort, but got an acknowledging grunt instead. Progress, but she still needed to snap the lieutenant back in line, if they survived this. The Reaper destroyer loomed in her dashboard monitor, making her pulse race. She almost had a weapons lock on them, which meant the Reapers absolutely had a firing solution on them.
"They're firing, Captain. 2 Void Razor missiles."
Serene didn't need the corporal to tell her the obvious. It's what she would have done if she were in the Reapers' place.
"Emil, do something. I'll take care of the missiles."
She was a warden, goddammit. Protecting lives, even criminal scum, was her duty. They weren't just cargo. They were people. Except maybe the Lycan. But even he was her responsibility. The klaxon alarm started screaming again, its sound piercing her helmet as if it weren't there.
"Turn that damn thing off."
Seconds later, the klaxon was off. The ship lurched violently, throwing Serene against her harness. She didn't hear any explosions, so she assumed Emil had just executed his idea of an evasive maneuver. The LiDAR panel beeped. Damn, the missiles were coming back around for another pass, meaning they were the heat-seeking kind. "Thought you said you'd take care of the missiles." Serene paid Emil's barb no mind and asked Sif how close they were to Hersu's moon.
2 light minutes to the satellite's exosphere.
Which might as well be forever. The Reaper destroyer would intercept them long before then. Serene's gaze shifted to the transport's bow cameras as the Reaper destroyer clawed into focus. Narrow in length, the destroyer's predatory contours reminded Serene of a starved raptor hungry for prey. The turret panel flashed green. Serene tried not to grind her teeth as she wrestled with the weapons console. The transport's turrets whirred to life. 2 Reaper missiles were coming at them from either side.
40 seconds till impact.
Corporal Sif was handling this much better than Emil, but Serene didn't have time to be impressed. She locked onto the missile coming in fast, port side. Serene fired for all she was worth. Seconds later, the missile erupted into a red and blue ball of fire. Serene spun the turret dial 180 degrees to take out the last missile. She was 3 seconds too late. The second missile slammed into their starboard aft. The ship buckled and tumbled. The emergency lights went out. Their consoles were dead too.
"Get that power back on, Sif!"
But Serene knew it was too late. Everyone on this ship was already dead. Chapter 3. Head pounding, his entire body aching. Jareth Moreau knew this had to be another hangover. It took a few moments before his instincts kicked in. Someone was pointing something near his face. A gun, most likely. He needed to wake up. Now. Light way too bright, Jareth found himself squinting before the warden came into focus. Garixian half-breed. Attractive, possibly more Newtian mix. Is this the part where you kiss me? The warden's frown told Jareth that she would rather stab him than kiss him. Not a problem. It wouldn't be the first time. Now where the hell was he?
Minor concussion, nothing broken.
The warden pulled her datapad away from Jareth's face.
Stay inside till I tell you.
The warden's voice dripped with the kind of authority that Jareth found annoying, and a little attractive. Judging by the stars on her black collar, this warden was a captain. Given this crap assignment, probably a new captain at that. Promise to catch me? The warden's icy stare was the only response he got before she awkwardly maneuvered over to the ship's open doors and dropped out of sight. Jareth looked down at his trapped arms. Well, she was smart enough not to demagnetize his wrists before she got out, meaning the warden would be tougher to dupe or kill later.
Come out. Slowly, she ordered.
The armrest lights next to his wristbands turned red, and he was free. The prison transit ship was lopsided with the stern dangling in the air. Jareth scurried out of the ship as quickly as he could, hoping that the stupid ship wouldn't choose this moment to take a dive. Jareth considered using his hands to steady himself on the ship, but decided against it when he noticed the scorch marks on the hull. Might still be hot enough to burn his hands. The humidity of this place was killing him. Jareth leapt from the ship and landed hard, feet first. Hell, they had crashed in a goddamn jungle. Guess he should be grateful that the crash didn't kill him. One glance at his fellow prisoners, maybe he wasn't so lucky. Each of them stood with their wrists over their groins thanks to the magnetized metal bands. Jareth immediately caught his mistake. The calcinite was female. He couldn't tell whether she was pretty or not. Felines and fur were never his thing. The big Tangeli he could take. The Garixian and Elcorth wouldn't be a problem either. The Lycan, though. Jareth wasn't so stupid to think he could kill one without a weapon, preferably two. The 4 wardens he could handle, or maybe get the other prisoners to handle them for him.
Cross your wrists.
Jareth looked to his right to see the warden captain aiming her laser pistol at him, center mass. The second warden, who had also guarded their cabin, was sporting a laser rifle and looked pleased to be pointing the weapon at Jareth's face. He would play along, for now. Jareth smiled at the warden captain and did what he was told. His metal wristbands beeped, reminding him of his compromised position. Jareth's eyes swept over the dense jungle surrounding them. Weird-looking trees towered skyward, casting long, jagged shadows over an undergrowth so thick he could barely see the soil beneath. The heat was suffocating, but it wouldn't kill him. These wardens, though, they might get him killed. The wrist cuffs made him vulnerable, and who knows what was lurking inside the jungle, not to mention the Reapers who had shot them down. The wardens formed a protective barrier around them. They had ditched their spacesuits, and everyone but the Valerianin seemed to be okay with the cute warden being in charge. Jareth took a good look at the Valerianin, making sure not to stare. He had never seen one up close before, and couldn't see why people found them beautiful. They looked like glass versions of Elysians, but with blue liquid and glitter poured into them. The warden captain broke the silence, her voice cutting through the suffocating heat of the jungle.
Listen up. We don't know much about this place, but given the luck we're having, we should assume that there are predators around.
Carnivorous vegetation, too, added the calcinite.
That, too.
The warden captain put her hands on her hips in an attempt to look intimidating. All it did was make her look yummy. Didn't you bulletheads send a distress signal? Barked the Lycan. He was so tall that even Jareth had to strain to look up at him. The guard warden shook his head in disgust. It'll take hours, maybe days before help comes.
But yes, continued the warden captain, we sent a distress signal to warden headquarters before we were shot down. There's a sapien-made structure not 3 kilometers from here. That's our best bet at holding out against the Reapers should they come looking for us."
Jareth wanted to laugh. Of course the Reapers would come looking for them. Unlike wardens, Reapers didn't do things halfway. At least not when it comes to killing. The warden captain continued her impromptu briefing, telling Jareth and his fellow prisoners to pick up their rations bag from the messy pile by the ship. They were to travel in V formation. Just great. The warden captain finished her little pep talk with,
"Anyone who tries to escape gets shot and left behind."
Jareth couldn't resist. Does that include wardens? The warden captain's eyes narrowed, and her Valerian colleague stared daggers at Jareth. "I'm not going anywhere," hissed the Lycan. The warden captain raised her pistol and aimed it at the mouthy Lycan.
"Fine, you can die here."
She flipped off the pistol's safety and fired. Chapter 4. Operations was buzzing with frantic activity when Talmanaka breezed into the room. No one seemed to notice her, which confirmed her suspicions. These morons were purging everything. Talmanaka surveyed the pandemonium before deciding on her next move. Technicians scurried around like frantic ants. Scientists barked orders. Screens flickered with urgent data streams, panicking like children. The Black Site's operations center was designed with lethal efficiency. A dark, voluminous space full of cutting-edge tech, cold steel, and icy hollow screens painted a monochrome portrait of barely controlled chaos. Talmanaka spotted the research facility's director and marched over to the scientist, her boot heels clicking ominously against the shiny obsidian floor. Director Fellaini Cabot hovered over an oddly attractive male stationed at a bank of monitors, the largest of which showed a transport ship of some kind on its side somewhere in the jungle.
"And what, pray tell, is all this fuss about?"
Talmanaka asked in her best cocktail voice as she sidled up to Director Cabot. The director fixed Talmanaka with a glacial stare. Despite her advancing age, the scientist possessed rosy smooth skin, gorgeous black eyes, and a haughtiness typical of her race, just like their employer. Most of the scientists and technicians at this black site were Mornutians, since Emryon Industries was at its heart racist, like most Mornutians. There were rumors that some Mornutian females were witches. Which wasn't the word Talmanaka would use for the director right now, though it was close. "Track the ship's occupants as much as you can," Cabot told the technician before addressing Talmanaka. "An Alliance ship has crash-landed in the jungle, shot down by a Reaper destroyer." "How dreadful. Where is the Reaper ship now?" Cabot pointed to the console monitor just above the technician's head. The Reaper destroyer was a gruesome sight, long in all the wrong places and designed with silly, jagged edges to make the destroyer look scary. It was anything but, in Talmanaka's opinion. "A tragedy, certainly," said Talmanaka, lowering her voice in respect. "But how is this relevant to—" She gestured vaguely at the chaos swirling around them. Cabot straightened, her dark eyes flashing with annoyance. "Emryon Protocol. If the Alliance finds us here, we download, then destroy our research data. I imagine that holds doubly so with Reapers knocking at our door." "You've got quite the imagination, Director. In case you haven't noticed, that Alliance ship is a prisoner transport. They don't know about us, neither do the Reapers." Cabot's dark eyes hardened. "Well, they will soon. The Alliance is headed to our satellite compound." "Really? Oh, that's perfect." Talmanaka flashed Cabot a warm, sincere smile. "This could be a wonderful opportunity. Real live subjects to test the cross system." The Centralized Responsive Operational Shield Security Project was one of the main reasons why Emryon Industries set up this black site on Hersu's moon. They were far away from Planetary Alliance's heavy-handed regulations and oversight. If Cross proved capable of controlling urban populations and putting down public unrest, Garrix 5's wardens would award Emryon with a multi-billion-dollar contract.
"That's unethical," Cabot said to Talmanaka with a straight face.
The scientist was working at a literal black site, and here she was spouting ethics. Apparently, Cabot wasn't the only one with a time-delayed sense of principles. Several scientists and technicians had formed a semicircle around them. Talmanaka didn't blame Cabot for hating her. Like many people, the director saw a vacuous, highly paid errand girl when they looked at her. A dangerous mistake.
"We will not endanger lives for your amusement or break protocol,"
Cabot motioned to the guards near the doors. Laser rifles vertically across their chests, the guards marched over in unison. The scientists and technicians parted for them.
"Please escort our guest to her quarters."
Talmanaka had to give it to the director. Unlike so many of her ilk, Cabot did have a backbone. Talmanaka offered Cabot a small, gracious nod, then whipped out her pistol and blew a laser hole through the director's chest. Cabot's eyes bulged with disbelief before she toppled onto her back. Screams, panic. Several scientists looked like they were about to run, but thought better of it with 2 laser rifles now pointed at them. She had bribed these 2 guards days ago. Talmanaka looked down at the fallen director and sighed. Then she addressed the remaining scientists and technicians.
"In the interest of saving time," she said sweetly, "are there any more objections?"
Silence. A couple of shaking heads. Lots of quiet tears.
"Good," Talmanaka purred. "Please be dears and stop destroying the data. Download it, though, and send it to my ship."
Talmanaka clapped her hands and offered her new friends a dazzling smile.
"Now hurry. We haven't much time before we have guests."
Chapter 5. An hour ago, Serene was praying for clouds and sunscreen. Instead, she got fog. Fog. In a jungle. According to her datapad, fog was a common occurrence in tropical forests. Garrix 5 didn't have any jungles, so Serene didn't feel completely stupid for not knowing everything about jungle climate. It's not like she left Garrix 5 very often. They had more or less kept to a V formation, Emil still taking point and pretty much ignoring everyone. The deeper they ventured into the jungle, the more the fog wrapped around them. Thankfully, geolocator-enabled datapads were one of the few things that HQ didn't skimp on. Otherwise, they might never make it to their destination. 6 prisoners. The gray fog obscured the criminals farthest from her, making it more of a challenge to control them. Any one of the prisoners could escape despite having their wrists cuffed. If someone did run for it, Serene would let them, despite what she said previously. They could die here. Hell, they all might die here. Every rustle of a bush or snap of a fallen branch set Serene's nerves on edge. The air was damp, and she was tired, more tired than she should be. Serene forced herself to keep up the pace Emil had set. Her feet constantly sank into the soft soil, the squelch beneath her boots the only reliable sound against the cacophony of unseen life around them. Since no one was talking, Serene was left alone with her thoughts. Doubt gnawed at her. She was definitely not ready for this. Shot down by Reapers, stranded planetside, or moonside in this case. The rank of captain felt almost as foreign to her as this alien jungle did. That kind of thinking would get them all killed. She needed to step up to this challenge.
"Corporal, any large animals nearby?"
Sif marched near the center of their formation, on the outside of the prisoners. Her head was still bent over her tablet when she replied.
"No, Captain. Wait, something might be following us."
Sif stopped short and shouted,
"Large animal coming in fast on our 6."
Bomeri and Serene spun around at the same time. A massive creature of rock and moss exploded from the fog and blurred past them. Before Serene could get a bead on it with her rifle, the creature snapped up the Elcorth with its mouth and continued plowing forward, disappearing back into the fog. If the prisoners hadn't scattered, they would have been trampled. But Serene couldn't worry about that right now. That thing was sure to come back. They were easy pickings. Plus, it had the Elcorth. She felt guilty for not remembering his name. A high-pitched scream pierced the fog, then nothing. How could something that big move so fast? Only Emil got off a single shot, and he didn't come close to touching that thing.
Wardens, wedge formation on me.
That's suicide, said Emil, not moving.
Those are my orders, Lieutenant.
Beaumary rushed over, rifle ready. Forget him, we've got this. Laser rifle ready to shoot, Corporal Sif took up a position next to Serene. Not much of a wedge with only 3 people, but it would have to do. Serene willed her breathing to slow down, but it didn't work. Her heart was still beating way too fast. What are we supposed to do? Asked Casimir Trey, their only Garixian prisoner.
Try not to die.
Serene leaned into a rifle scope, determined to take the beast out this time, alone if she had to. Emil could go screw himself. Serene scanned the area for the Lycan and called him.
Lycan, where is it?
The look that the Lycan gave her might have been scary if she weren't about to get trampled by a rock monster. Seeing that she didn't flinch, the Lycan tilted his head and sniffed the air. East, not far. The ground trembled as the beast exploded from the white fog and sprang toward them. It moved like a comet, entrails of what was left of the Elcorth spilling from its massive jaws.
Fire!
Serene's command cut through the beast's roar. Beams of red-hot lasers tore through the fog and into the rock beast. The creature shrugged it off, spun around, and charged again. Emil's laser blasted chunks from the beast's hide, distracting it for a few precious seconds. Serene, Beaumary, and Sif's concentrated fire blasted away more chunks of the beast's rocky hide. It wasn't enough. The beast kept charging. The 3 of them dove to the ground, barely getting out of the creature's way as it blurred past. "For goddess sake," yelled Jareth Morrow. "Shoot its legs first." Serene wanted to tell Moreau to shove his advice, but he was right. Serene spit the dirt out of her mouth and got back up.
Let's all go for its right front leg.
Got it, chirped Sif. Beaumary grunted his assent and raised his rifle for the next pass. It came at them like a meteor, and this time it was going to kill somebody else if they didn't kill it first. They hit the rock beast with controlled laser bursts as it launched itself at them, roaring its rage. Its right leg exploded, sending the creature crashing forward. 3 laser blasts to the head from Emil, and the creature stopped moving. Silence never tasted so good. Sweat-soaked and panting, Serene looked around.
Everyone okay?
The Lycan glared at her. Yeah, feeling much safer now, Warden. Serene was tempted to tell him to go screw himself, but he was right. Someone under her watch had gotten killed, and if she were to be honest with herself, the Elcorth probably wouldn't be the last one. Chapter 6. Some people are easier to manipulate than others. Talmanaka was thinking about this as she reclined in her ship's pilot seat and considered the Reaper commander. Not unlike his Alliance counterparts, Commander Musa Ko sported an ego that outmatched his mental facilities. Yes, he was tall and strong and muscular in all the right places. However, she had never been fond of tattoos, especially on the face, and particularly when said face also boasted a complexion better left to a corpse. From the wall monitor, the Reaper commander glared down at Talmanaka, completely ignoring her generous breasts. There was a slim, though unlikely chance that the Reaper officer was not fond of breasts. Just as well, betting him would be a chore. They were on an encrypted channel and far from prying eyes. No point in worrying those silly scientists over her innocent relationship with the enemy. You promised me a cutting-edge weapons system, Talmanaka. Musako's deep voice reverberated throughout her ship's cockpit.
Yes, of course, Talmanaka cooed. But where is the payment you promised me?
She dished up a playful smile as she watched the frustration cross Musako's face. Power, she knew, was as much about manipulation as it was about brute force. Musako grinned at her. "You're hardly in a position to make demands. My destroyer is in orbit, and it would be simple to wipe out you and your little research facility." Tamanaka crossed her long legs and sighed. "My, you are strong-willed." "Give me the coordinates." Tamanaka didn't doubt that the Reaper commander would carry through on his threat if he didn't need the cross-weapon system so much. "Very well," she said, calling up a hollow screen from her wristcom. Her fingers briefly danced over its translucent display. Tamanaka dismissed the hollow screen with a flick of a finger, then sat back and smiled at the Reaper. Musako turned his head as if someone were speaking to him off-camera, undoubtedly informing the Reaper commander that the rock drifting in her Sue's exosphere was in fact a satellite and not space debris, and it was now transmitting a distress signal. Musako returned his attention to Tamanaka. "You just signed your death warrant." She dismissed his threat with a wave of her hand. "On the contrary, Commander, what I just did was ensure that you pay up, or fail spectacularly. I suspect your Cyrax masters won't take kindly to failure." Musako's black eyes flashed with anger, making Tamanaka smile. Her arrow had struck. No male likes to be reminded of his overlords. "You can send my down payment to these coordinates." Tamanaka leaned over and initiated the transfer, making certain to bounce them off the space debris satellite so the Reaper didn't know where to blast her. Her wristcom pinged 11 seconds later. Tamanaka checked the amount, then gave Musako a dazzling smile. "Thank you so much, Commander." "Spare me your platitudes and just send me the damn coordinates." Tamanaka reached for her ship's comm dashboard. "Sending now." Musako's image vanished from the screen. The Reaper commander had no intention of paying the rest of what he owed her. Instead, he would send a squad or two to retrieve the cross-weapon system, which was more than she could hope for. The coordinates that she had sent him were to the now-abandoned Citadel 11 clicks away from here. Alliance Wardens versus Reapers, an explosive showdown indeed. But the true winner, the ultimate predator, would be Cross. And with the Citadel's all-seeing surveillance network slaved to her ship's monitoring system, she had a front-row seat to what was sure to be a brutal tableau. Tamanaka glanced down at her wristcom. Plenty of time for a trip to the galley and to pour herself a drink. She deserved it. Ah, manipulation. It's even better than sex. And if ever came a day she didn't win, she would burn it all down and take the galaxy with her. Chapter 7. The Elkoth's name was Nolten Logiatar. He was a killer and a scumbucket, and she had gotten him killed. Looking up his name was the least Serene felt she could do. Serene studied the fortress with untrained eyes. The outer wall's swirling curves made the fortress look more like a museum than a black site. Serene knew this was a black site even before she spotted the turrets on top of the parapets. The structure's design, definitely Alliance, which was a relief, but who built it, and why build it in a star system so close to the Cyrax? The jungle brush was cleared a good 6 meters from the fortress walls, so they stayed at the jungle's edges while Serene contemplated their next move. "Sif, are you sure you're not reading any signs of life?" Corporal Sif looked up from her tablet. "I'm picking up something that could be alive, but it's not inside the Citadel itself." Serene wondered why Sif referred to the structure as a citadel rather than a fortress. It did look large enough, though, to encompass a small town, so citadel was probably the correct term. Still, Sif's readings made no sense. Unless, perhaps whoever lives inside was hiding underground. And why hide when you have big plasma turrets standing guard? Maybe they have some kind of tech that blocks our sensors, said Beaumary, standing in a way that he could confer with the team while still keeping an eye on the prisoners. Serene cast her gaze over their charges, her lips curving into a half-hearted smile.
Anyone wants to test the turrets?
Suddenly, this yappy group had absolutely nothing to say, though the sparkle in Jareth Morrow's dark eyes told Serene that he was enjoying the show. She knew no one would volunteer, and she wouldn't allow a prisoner to do so anyway. She was just taking a few moments to build up her confidence, which, frankly, was dwindling. Serene passed her laser rifle over to Beaumary, who had no problem holding 2 rifles while still looking very intimidating. She pretended not to notice Emil's disapproving stare and took off, sprinting toward the sandstone-colored citadel. Serene kept her eye on the turrets as she zigzagged this way and that. Nothing. Serene stopped short, trying not to pant too loudly. She was definitely out of shape, or maybe she was too soft to be a warden. She pushed those doubts from her mind. Second-guessing herself would only get her killed, along with everyone else. She looked up at the massive turrets. They hadn't moved a centimeter. Casimir Trey lifted his cuffed wrists and pointed to the turret on the east side of the citadel. The power charger is red, Warden. They're offline. Serene prayed she wasn't blushing.
So you let me work up a sweat for nothing?
Maybe your fellow Garixian likes seeing you sweat. Emil snickered at Moreau's stupid joke. Jerk, both of them. Corporal Sif tried to hide a grin, but Beaumary was smiling openly. Even the stupid prisoners were smiling. Serene chose to ignore them, focusing on the task at hand. The Reapers would be planetside soon if they weren't already. The Citadel was probably their best shot at surviving until help comes. If help comes. The Citadel boasted a turret on each of its 4 corners. If they could get them operational, it could even the odds against the Reapers. Serene turned to Casimir Trey.
You think you could get those turrets working?
He looked at Serene, his expression flat. Casimir Trey looked back up at the turrets and nodded. Yeah, if there's power in this place, I probably could.
Great.
Serene walked back to Beaumary. He returned her smile and passed Serene's rifle to her.
Let's go. Column formation. Emil, you have point.
The prisoners took their sweet time, forming a semblance of a line. Emil didn't move. Serene called out to him,
Is there a problem, Lieutenant?
Emil shook his head, his liquid blue features angry. Going inside there is suicide. Serene felt, more than saw, the prisoner's eyes go from Emil to her. She was really hoping to be able to avoid this confrontation, but Emil wasn't giving her much of a choice.
A word, please, Lieutenant?
Serene took several steps toward the jungle brush and gave the prisoners her back, just in case anyone could read lips. After a few moments, Emil offered a dramatic sigh and slowly joined her, his rifle crossed against his chest. What? He might as well have slapped her. The resentment in his tone was that obvious.
What's your problem with me, Emil?
He just stared at her. Then after a few moments, he asked Serene for permission to speak freely.
Please do.
You shouldn't be captain. His sneer marred an otherwise beautiful face. The only reason why you got the promotion over me was because the wardens wanted to avoid another sex discrimination lawsuit. Serene could think of 100 reasons why Emil was wrong. She deserved this promotion, but maybe Emil did too. The wardens, at least the ones on Garrix 5, were known for their systematic discrimination against females, especially the ones not built like tanks.
You might be right.
Her admission visibly surprised him, but his jaw remained tight.
Listen, Emil, I'll make a deal with you. I won't report you for insubordination, and you start following orders.
Your orders are going to get us killed. You don't know what you're doing.
And you do?
She snapped, then took a deep breath. Losing her temper, especially in front of the prisoners, was stupid. Emil might feel as out of his element as she did, maybe even a little scared.
Emil, neither of us can change what happened with the promotions list, but we can get out of this alive if we work together. Okay?
Emil looked down at her, finally nodding. This was nowhere near settled, but Serene felt confident that there was a modest chance that he would stop trying to undermine her every step of the way. She returned to the group and pointed to the huge lichen.
Lichen, you're with me.
I've got a name, he snarled. Serene felt a lump in her stomach. Of course he had a name, just like Knowlton Logiatar. But she couldn't back down. Lycans tended to view kindness as weakness. Serene kept her eyes on the Lycan and addressed Sif.
Corporal, what's this prisoner's name?
Jopel, ma'am.
Let's go, Jopel.
Serene turned and headed for the Citadel's grand steps.
Move, Sif said.
The Lycan growled at Sif, but Serene could hear him following her up the steps. At the top of the steps, a towering slab of metal loomed over them. She wasn't sure if it was a gate or drawbridge of some kind. Serene kept track of the Lycan with her peripheral vision. Even cuffed, the Lycan could do some serious damage to her with those sharp claws on his feet. A large hole materialized in the center of the gate. Serene and Jopel glanced at each other. Serene didn't like this one bit.
Is anyone inside?
The Lycan, no, Jopel, took a deep sniff and shook his wolf-like head. Not anymore. They left. Recently. Couple of hours max. Serene signaled for everyone else to join them. She took point, keeping her rifle on the ready. Serene couldn't help the unease that pulled at her. This place felt wrong, like a holovid production set where the actors had all vanished. Its beauty surprised her, though. The Citadel was a curious blend of the future and past. Luminescent blue glass and metal dominated. 3 buildings, 2 stories high, 1 in the center and 2 on either side, and a trendy water fountain in the courtyard. Everyone was wary, even cocky Moreau, confirming that something was certainly wrong with this place.
My readings are stronger here,
Sif said, eyeing her tablet while her left hand fiddled with her pistol. Sif looked up at Serene.
There's a large cavern underneath the Citadel, and life forms.
That didn't make Serene feel any better. This was looking more and more like a trap, but the jungle left them too exposed. No, they had to make their stand against the Reapers here. Her motley crew stopped at the fountain, all of them scanning their surroundings. Serene appointed Beaumary and Emile to watch the prisoners and watch the entrance, which no longer had the hole in the middle. They were trapped. Well, at least that would make it harder for the Reapers to kill them.
Sif and me will scout around. Everyone else stay here and rehydrate. Stay alert, though. All of you.
Serene set the pace toward the sleek building on the left, Corporal Sif following closely, pistol ready. Serene would rather have Beaumary with her, but she didn't fully trust Emile. She also had her doubts that Sif would be much good at managing the prisoners with only Emile there to help her. The pristine whiteness of the building struck Serene as disturbingly unnatural. Serene let her laser rifle lead the way into the first corridor. Like the receiving area, everything was bleach white, including the doors and steps. No dirt either. They came to a bend in the corridor, and Serene slowly peeked around. A blinking eye, a surveillance camera, was aimed at the spot they would be once they turned the corner.
There's a surveillance camera waiting for us, Serene whispered.
She didn't know why she was whispering.
Can you track its source?
Sif nodded and started pecking away at her tablet. Serene motioned for Sif to stay put as she gingerly stepped around the corner. This corridor was a clone of the last one, except for the surveillance camera and single white door in the middle of the corridor. Serene moved carefully toward the door, her rifle still ready. Something was behind this door, something that might hurt her. Maybe she should leave it alone and move on. No, she wouldn't let her fear rule her. Serene reached for the doorknob and started twisting. Gunfire tore through the silence. The prisoners! Serene bolted back down the corridor. She sprinted out of the building and ran straight into a nightmare.
What is that?
Sif asked, coming to a stop next to Serene. Serene had no clue what that thing was. Hovering in the air above Emil and the prisoners was a slime-green sphere, half Serene's size and twice her width. Its 5 tentacles whipped around like they had a life of their own. One tentacle was strangling Jopel, another had snagged Tara by the ankle. The calcinite's nails dug into the ground, but the sphere continued to reel her in, its tentacle retracting into its spherical body. The Tangeli and Casimir Trey tried dodging while Bomeri lay on his back, stunned. 2 tentacles cornered them while another lashed at their heads. Emil was firing his laser rifle at the sphere's center. So was Moreau, which couldn't be easy given that his wrists were magnetized. It was a waste of time. The sphere absorbed each blast. Serene slung her rifle onto her back and unsheathed her laser knife. Sif followed her lead.
We attack it from different sides. Go for the tendrils.
Sif nodded and ran into position. Serene called out to Moreau and told him to stop shooting. His eyes narrowed as he frowned at her, then shifted his attention back to the slime-green sphere. He stopped firing. Good. She didn't want Sif or herself to get hit by friendly fire.
Emil, keep distracting it.
He kept firing. That's all I'm doing, apparently. Serene dove to the ground and rolled as a tentacle whipped past her. She sprang to her feet and slashed at the appendage, strangling Jopel. The sphere didn't scream, but its severed tentacle thrashed violently. The Lycan fell to his knees, gasping for breath. On the other side of the sphere, it looked like Sif was hacking away at the tentacle that had grabbed Tara. With a pop, the calcinite was free. Bomeri was back in the fight, but he was moving slower than he should be. Laser knife or not, maybe she should order him to stay out of this mess. A tentacle came out of nowhere and slapped Serene on the side, smacking her to the ground. Bone-crushing pain racked her body. These damned tentacles moved like liquid and writhed like a sea monster. Serene noted something else, though. The sphere seemed to shrink with each new appendage it created. Maybe all they had to do was keep it busy. Serene called out to the Tangeli,
Dryden, I need you and Tara to get this thing's attention.
The Tangeli didn't have time to respond. He was too busy getting knocked around by a thrashing tentacle. Tara was doing a better job. She'd twist one moment and do a backflip the next, her feline grace fluid and natural. The sphere had 3 new tentacles now, but it was also smaller, a lot smaller. Apparently, the sphere used its own mass to create its deadly tentacles. Serene continued slashing away at the gelatinous menace. So did Emil and Bomeri. Sif, too. Severed appendages littered the ground. They were winning. Until another tentacle shot out of the shrinking sphere and speared Bomeri in the back. He screamed as his body shuddered. Sif and Serene sliced the tentacle nearly at the same time. Bomeri folded to the ground with a part of the tentacle still in his back. The thing was still moving until Jopel ripped it out. Bomeri didn't scream. He didn't do anything. Just lay there as Serene ran over to him. She rolled him over to his side as gently as she could manage. Moreau was firing at the sphere again. Seconds later, she heard a giant pop. The sphere deflated and plunged to the ground.
Get me a medkit,
Serene shouted. No one moved. This surprised her, so she looked up. Everyone was looking at her, their faces grim. Sif knelt beside Serene and shook her head.
It's too late, ma'am.
Sif was right. Bomeri was gone. Serene saw Emil's boots move toward Moreau. Hand over that rifle, prisoner. Serene looked up from Bomeri. Moreau's eyes were on her, not Emil. He tossed Bomeri's rifle down and took a step back. Serene wanted to ignore the blood on her hands and the sick, shaky feeling in the pit of her stomach. They were 8 now. Some captain she was turning out to be. Serene shook her head. This was not the time for self-loathing. As long as they stayed alert, they could survive a few more hours. Help was on the way. It had to be. Chapter 8. General Armentary Zaid glanced down at his desk tablet for the time. If all went well, the bloodletting would have begun hours ago. This was a gamble, to be sure, a big gamble, but he had already placed his bets. The pieces on the playing board were in motion, and that suck-up Lieutenant Colonel Rama should be scurrying to his office any moment now. It didn't take long for Zaid's secretary to alert him. A miniature holographic avatar of Darav faded in over Zaid's executive desk.
Sir, Lieutenant Colonel Rama wishes an audience.
Does he have an appointment? It was hard not to smile.
No, sir, he does not.
Darav's eyes shifted to someone else out of view. Rama, most likely.
He says that it's most urgent.
Zaid allowed a long 30 or so seconds before responding, meant to rattle Rama. My schedule for today?
Darav didn't even have to check his computer. You have an appointment in 40 minutes with the Undersecretary, sir.
Zaid sighed audibly, hopefully loud enough for Rama to hear. Give me 10 minutes, then send the colonel in.
Yes, General.
Darav's avatar flickered and disappeared. Darav was a model of courtesy and efficiency. Still, Zaid couldn't stop the pang of regret at having to replace Kandros with Darav. Sure, Darav was handsome. Zaid always insisted on surrounding himself with beautiful people in his office, preferably Garixians, since so many alliance races bordered on repulsive when it comes to appearances. Trouble is, Darav was male, and therefore provided Zaid no pleasure when he looked at him. Damn sexual discrimination lawsuits. Nothing wrong with having a pretty secretary. It's not like he was sleeping with Kandros or anything, though he did enjoy looking at her gorgeous legs. The wardens caved in far too easily to political pressure, in his opinion. With the press of a button, Zaid brought up a holographic display of the Hersu star system. 8 planets, plenty of natural resources, and 1 habitable moon. Perfect, really, for settlement, except for the small fact that Hersu falls on the border of Cyrax's territory. Zaid checked his tablet again. 10 minutes had already passed. He squared his shoulders and swiped away the holo-display. Rama strode in without preamble, tall and confident. He stopped in front of Zaid's desk and offered a crisp salute. Zaid placed his fist over his heart in return. Rama's faux professionalism was a stark contrast to the relaxed elegance of Zaid's office. The rich, deep blue curtains framing the window down to Garrick's 5 landscapes captured in oil and canvas, his idea. Along with a sharp mind, Zaid was also graced with good taste. So, Zaid said, finally, what exactly is so urgent, Colonel? Sir, we received a distress signal from one of our prisoner transport ships. Really? Zaid leaned forward. What happened to it? Rama quickly explained the ship's unexpected detour to the Hersu system, blaming the mishap on an arc gate malfunction. Arc gate technology was riddled with redundancies and failsafes, making FTL travel extremely safe. Zaid shook his head, dismissing the suggestion. There hasn't been a malfunction with an arc gate for eons. Well, what else could it be? Zaid's black eyes turned cold. That's your job to find out. Wouldn't you agree, Colonel? Rama nodded vigorously. The suck-up. However, Rama wasn't stupid. Eventually, he would consider sabotage played a role in this mishap. He would never be able to prove it, naturally. It was highly doubtful that the prisoner ship would be recovered in one piece. Zaid folded his hands. Anything else I should know, Rama? The transport message also mentioned being attacked by Reapers. What? Zaid fixed Rama with an icy glare. You're just telling me this now? Rama's brow furrowed, but he kept the annoyance from his voice. That's why I needed to meet with you. We need to send a rescue team, immediately, and I would like to lead them. Now this was interesting. Since when did Rama care about anything but his career? Reapers were the elite military arm of the Cyrax and ruthless when it came to bringing death and destruction. Zaid stared at Rama, reassessing him. What was his motivation, and how did any of this benefit the lieutenant colonel? Zaid looked up at Rama, who was still standing ramrod straight. Is there anything special about the prisoners on the ship, or even the wardens? No, sir. Zaid nodded, considering, or at least pretending to. You did say that we received the distress signal 2 hours ago? Yes, sir. Then why waste our resources? The Reapers will have certainly destroyed the transport ship and its occupants hours ago. We don't know that for a fact, sir. Rama's tone was starting to annoy Zaid. As you well know, Colonel, any conflict with the Cyrax falls under military, not warden jurisdiction. Zaid sat back slightly in his executive chair. Convince me why we shouldn't let the fleet handle this. Because, said Rama, eyes dripping with false sincerity, wardens take care of our own. Zaid nodded, approval in his black eyes. This was a lie he could live with. Chapter 9. Honestly, Jareth had expected the Gorixian hacker to be the first one to get killed. He would have lost that bet, since it was the Elcorth who got chewed up by whatever the hell that jungle thing was. Hands still cuffed in magnetic bracelets, Jareth watched the other survivors on the sly, particularly the half-Gorixian, half-Mornutian warden. Lynx seemed different, not like the wardens he was used to. Weak, compassionate. He would play that against her. Done crying yet? Jareth asked, even though the warden captain wasn't literally crying over her dead teammate, but her dark eyes were moist with unshed tears. Shut up, prisoner, snapped the pilot warden. Jareth looked the hotshot in the eye. Oh, so you suddenly care about her feelings now? The Lycan grunted a laugh. Lynx stood up, wiping her face clean of any emotion. Casimir, still think you can get those turrets working? The Gorixian hacker stared at her for a moment, probably surprised that a warden addressed him like a person. Jareth wasn't surprised at all. The hacker craned his neck, his gaze snaking up to the monstrous turrets perched atop each corner wall. Jet black, the massive weapons squatted there, waiting. Yeah, he said finally. Why not? I'll need a tablet, though. Loan him yours, Sif, the warden captain ordered. Sif glanced over at her co-pilot, then passed her tablet over to Casimir. The hacker whistled, then frowned. Not bad, though certainly not the latest model. He looked up at Lynx. I think it'll do, but someone will need to put the weapon system back online. And where do we find that? Asked Sif. Sif was full Gorixian, nothing on top of her head, bicorded skin, and she was even more of a newbie than Lynx. The hacker pointed to the building the wardens had just come out of. According to this, he shook the tablet. It should be on the 2nd floor. Fine, said Lynx. Dryden, Morrow, you're with me. Let's go. The Tangeli and Jareth looked at each other. Jareth shrugged, gave the warden hotshot an evil smile, then followed the warden captain, the Tangeli right behind him. Jareth understood Lynx's caution. She didn't like the ratio of wardens to prisoners. Taking 2 prisoners with her would relieve the burden of her fellow wardens. He suspected there was more to it. She trusted him. A little. Yeah, he might be a convict, but she was smart enough to realize that he was also a survivor. They went inside what looked like to Jareth a typical office building. Well, at least the walls were made of something sturdier than prefab, and it was a lot cooler inside here than that damn jungle or even the courtyard. They took a wide staircase to the 2nd floor. Jareth was pretty good at reading people. He wondered what on the 2nd floor made the warden captain tense up so. There's a security camera in the next hall, she said, not looking back. Live? Dryden asked. The warden nodded and stopped at the T-section of the corridor, her back to the wall. Whoever lives or works here is watching us remotely. Don't let your guard down. Jareth raised his magnetized wrists. Kind of hard not to. You talk too much, said Dryden. Under normal circumstances, that would be a challenge Jareth would gladly accept. Good thing he knew how to keep his temper in check. He needed to be on his best behavior. For now. At least long enough to win this warden's trust.
I'm guessing, said Lynx. The weapon system is at the far end of the corridor. Don't touch anything.
Lynx stayed on the right side of the corridor, 3 steps ahead, while Jareth and loudmouth Dryden walked center right so they could see. Jareth was no designer or architect, but you'd think someone would have had the good sense not to make the place so empty and white. Nothing on the walls, white doors. Blah, might as well be in prison. They barely made it halfway down the corridor when Jareth heard a click. They all heard it. It was the floor tile Dryden had stepped on. Jareth's gut clenched. He didn't know what just happened or what was going to happen. He just knew it was going to be bad. "Get down!" Jareth hissed. Jareth flung himself to the floor, pain spiking through his arm and shoulder on impact. The warden had dropped down onto the floor too, a little more gracefully than Jareth had managed. Then again, the warden's hands weren't cuffed like his. Jareth scanned the corridor as much as he could, but all he saw was the Tangeli looking down at them in disgust. 3 meters in front of them, a spinning circular device sprung up from the floor, spitting darts. "Pathetic," Dryden growled, looking down at the darts peppering his midsection. And then, the darts exploded. 10 minutes and 1 dead Tangeli later, they found the weapons room. Lynx was competent enough to figure out how to restart the Citadel's defense systems, with a little help from Jareth. He was good at breaking into things. The Valerian warden aimed his rifle at Jareth the moment they approached. "Lynx, why isn't he cuffed?"
"Where's Dryden?"
asked Sif. The warden captain shook her head.
"The hallways. It was booby-trapped."
Hotshot warden pilot, otherwise known as Emil, didn't seem convinced. "That doesn't explain why this guy isn't cuffed." The thunderous roar of engines caused everyone to look up, even though the Citadel's dome cut off the sky. It was the sound of dropships landing nearby. The Reapers had found them. Lynx fixed everyone with a surprisingly steady gaze, then turned to Sif.
"Demagnetize the prisoners."
Sif shot a glance at the hotshot pilot.
"I gave you a damn order, Corporal,"
said Lynx, her voice tinged with ice. "An illegal one," grumbled the warden pilot. Now Emil, he was the kind of warden Jareth was used to, a total jerk.
"The Reapers," said Lynx, "will be here any moment. The turrets won't hold them off for long. We need to work together to get out of this."
Lynx turned back to Sif.
"Corporal?"
Jareth couldn't help but grin. Sif looked like she was on the verge of a meltdown, but she did what she was told. Lynx passed her laser pistol over to Jareth with a frown. He accepted it with a gracious nod and a smirk, which made hotshot pilot glower at Lynx even more. "I'm not giving these prisoners my weapons." Lynx removed the plasma rifle from her back scabbard.
3 wardens against goddess knows how many Reapers. You really like those odds, Emil?"
He just stared at her, as calmly as if there weren't Reapers about to bust up the place. Maybe that's how Valerians are. Jareth hadn't met many Valerians before, which kind of made sense. Valero supposedly had a population under 2 million. The media and tabloids proclaimed Valerians to be the most beautiful species, skin that looked like transparent glass with a universe of blue and white stars inside. To Jareth, they just looked creepy. "I'm not giving these losers my rifle," hotshot pilot repeated. "Your pistol will do," Jareth offered, earning him a glare from Lynx. Sif sighed.
"Who wants my pistol?"
"Me," Casimir Trey and the calcinite Tara said at the same time. Tara bared her teeth, and the Garixian hacker threw his hands up in surrender. "Ladies first." Sif handed her pistol to Tara. Hotshot pilot glared at Lynx. "This is stupid, even for you." He held his pistol up, surrendering it to the new order of things. The hacker and the Lycan glanced at each other, the latter snarling. Casimir shrugged. "Please, you take the pistol, kind sir. I'll hide behind you." The Lycan snatched the laser pistol and shoved it into his prison belt. Lynx turned to Sif.
I need you to find us a way out of here. There's a cavern below the citadel, said Sif, working her tablet. Didn't you say there's some kind of wildlife down there? Asked the Calcinite. Possibly dangerous wildlife?
Everyone stared at her, especially the wardens. Tara smiled and pointed to the two feline ears near the top of her head.
I have very good hearing.
Lynx shifted her attention to the hacker.
Are the turrets ready?
He nodded. They're ready.
How long can they hold the Reapers off?
Lynx pressed, checking her rifle magazine. Casimir shrugged. Long enough for us to escape into the caverns or get killed by one of those booby traps. The whirring of heavy machinery caused everyone to look up. The turrets were rotating, hopefully toward those Reaper dropships. Lynx motioned for Sif to lead the way.
Prisoners, don't do anything stupid and we might just survive this.
So, of course, Jareth said something stupid. What if we try to escape? The steel behind the warden captain's eyes surprised him.
We're all trying to escape.
Chapter 10. Kijani was more than a tech head. He was a virtuoso in a world of code and data. When his fingers weren't dancing across holoscreens, they were wrapped around throats or balled up into fists, laying out Reapers left and right. That's what made him different. He was more than a good Reaper. He was a damn maestro of mayhem. Good-looking, too. Maybe a little too good-looking, but hey, there was plenty enough of him to go around, which led him to his current situation. Not only did he screw Commander Musako's daughter, he was stupid enough to cheat on her. So now, his current commander was out to destroy and or kill him. As much as he wanted to think otherwise, Kijani knew that there was a really good chance that he wasn't coming back from this mission. Always thinking with his other head. Well, nothing much he could do about that now, except try to stay out of Musako's way, which wasn't easy on a dropship. They were about to land. Even winding down, the roar of the ship's engines was always the worst thing about a drop, which is why he kept his helmet on. Musako barked at everyone to line up for the jump. He wanted boots on the ground before the ship landed. Plasma rifle against his chest, Kijani jumped a good 2 meters from the dropship. The polymer tech in his battle armor easily absorbed the impact, but he bent his knees anyway out of habit. Last in line, but definitely not the shortest, Kijani sprinted after Dragon Squad to a structure that just might be a fortress. 2 dropships, 20 Reapers, not including the pilots. Seemed a little overkill to Kijani. Very unusual for Musako, but Kijani certainly wasn't going to be the one to mention that to the commander. Musako fixed his glare on Kijani and pointed at the fortress. Are there people inside that thing? Damn, he should have checked already. Kijani whipped his data tablet from his belt and opened his tracking app. 8 red dots blinked to life. What? This made no sense. He was also detecting something else, underground. Well, hissed Musako. Kijani tried to wet his mouth before he spoke. Didn't work. I'm getting 8 heat signatures inside the structure, but there's something else underground. People? Musako asked. Kijani shook his head, glad that his helmet faceplate hid his confusion. I don't know, sir. Musako looked down at him like he was something he just stepped in. Even though Musako's faceplate hid his face, Kijani could still feel the commander's coal-black eyes boring into him. Musako gave Kijani his back and turned to address the Reapers. Banshee Squad! Shouted Musako. Secure the perimeter! Dragon Squad! Thresher Horn formation on me! 3 Reapers flanked left, 3 others rushed toward the fortress's right side. Kijani and 2 other Reapers were stuck with Musako in the center. Was it possible that this place was as undefended as it looked? Well, except for those giant turrets. They looked like they weren't activated. Kijani reached for his data tablet to make certain they stayed off. Someone screamed, others cursed, and everyone scattered as death ripped through their ranks from above. 25mm rounds, judging by the way the ammo was tearing through their armor. Kijani barely dodged a stream of bullets. The two guys in front of him weren't so lucky. One was literally reduced to a smoking pile of pot-marked armor, and the other groaned as he clasped at his missing lower leg. Blood pooled around him. Vadum and he weren't exactly best buds, but they were friends. "Fall back!" ordered Musako. The Reaper commander hefted up his laser cannon and took out the east turret in a single blast. Despite his dislike for the Bang scare, Kijani couldn't help but be impressed by the surgical precision of Musako's shot. Seconds later, Kijani found himself ducking to avoid a flurry of wild gunfire. It took him a moment to process what happened. Stupid Drac had been too slow to follow the commander's orders because he just had to keep wasting bullets on the turret. As a result, he was caught in a blaze of bullets from the west end turret. As Drac fell, he must have reflexively squeezed his rifle trigger, spraying bullets in all directions. A few stray rounds pinged off Musako's cannon, causing visible damage to its glossy black finish. Musako glared at his laser cannon, then tossed it into the dirt. "Kijani, get those damn turrets down!" Musako's voice thundered through his comm, causing Kijani to wince. "On it!" Hunched over his data tablet, Kijani reveled in the jolts of adrenaline pumping through his system. There was a thrill in working under pressure, even when you're about to die. It took a certain amount of craziness to be a Reaper, but for free room and board, monthly payments to your family, and the chance to work with all this gorgeous tech, it was so worth it. Kijani felt Musako's glare on his back. He needed to stop thinking about Vadum missing his leg and the damn turrets firing at them. It was already hard enough working his tablet with these gloves on. Code scrolled across the screen, lines of security checks and firewalls designed to protect the Alliance structure's weapons system. He was sweating now, his breath coming in short. His fellow Reapers were now spread around the edges of the jungle. Turret bullets burned through the air, distorting it with their heat. They ripped through their cover, making the ground hiss and smoke. Both squads returned fire, a mix of laser and plasma rounds, bouncing off the turret shields with no more impact than hailstones against a tank. The turrets must be scanning the area for heat signatures and the slightest movement. All he had to do was hit them with a couple of lines of malware and, "Hold your fire!" ordered Musako. Everyone obeyed, almost instantly. Commander Musako expected no less from them. Even better, the turrets had stopped firing. Kijani checked his tablet. Yeah, the enemy turrets were now offline. Excellent job, Kijani. A Reaper's yelp cut through the silence. Kijani turned toward the jungle in time to see a hairy vine drag one of his comrades deeper into the brush. Thankfully, several Reapers rushed in and blew the vine to bits with a spray of bullets. "Get that gate open!" Musako growled into Kijani's comm. Kijani ran up the steps to the gate and opened his scrambler. Like the turrets, the gate's security mechanics were puzzling. A real challenge that under different circumstances Kijani would have savored. Not now, not with Musako staring daggers at him. Kijani worked as fast as he could. Why did Alliance code have to be so damn alien? "If you don't get that gate open in one more minute," Musako barked, "I'm gonna send in the bomb squad." "I can do this," Kijani muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. 2 minutes later, he still hadn't gotten the gate open, but he was getting so close. This stupid Alliance code was finally making sense. "Kijani!" A gunshot exploded. Kijani flinched and shot a look at Musako standing over Vadum. The poor guy now had a giant hole in his head. Plasma rifle still smoking, Musako seemed to be staring at Kijani. "Better get that gate open before we lose any more people." Kijani never much liked Musako, but right now, Kijani wanted the Reaper commander dead. It wasn't exactly uncommon for Reaper commanders to smoke their soldiers when they were severely wounded, but still, Musako's threat couldn't be any more clear. Instead of taking a shot at Musako, Kijani got back to work. This was definitely his last mission. None of them were making it out of here, except maybe Musako. "Put him and the other one in a body bag," Musako said. "And get those explosives ready. I doubt our hacker has what it takes to get us inside." Kajani almost had it. Another 30 seconds and… Two shadows loomed over him. Kajani looked up. "Move, techhead," said one Reaper. Kajani did what he was told. He shot a look at Musako, observing them with his rifle cradled in his beefy arms. Kajani moved to the far side of the fortress and braced for the explosion. The blast was relatively small, but very effective. The metal gate was now bent and twisted on its hinges, with a gaping hole in its center. "Kill everyone in sight," said Musako, marching up the grandiose steps. He grabbed Kajani by the arm. "You will find and download all of the information this place has, or don't bother coming out. Not if you understand." Kajani should have hauled back and hit the bang scare. Instead, Kajani nodded, feeling the shame burning on his cheeks. When it came to the chain of command, he was a coward who wanted to live. Musako shoved Kajani toward the gate's hole, and Kajani let him, because that's what cowards do. Die by 1,000 cuts. Chapter 11. Everyone knows that time is death, or rather the lack of time, and Serene knew they were out of time thanks to her stupid decision to come to the Citadel. 2 prisoners dead, Beaumary dead, and the Reapers had breached the Citadel. Emile was right, they should have never come here. Serene's missteps haunted her as she and her motley crew of survivors ran through the empty building. Heart pounding as she ran, Serene led the way. If someone was going to step on a booby trap, it should be her. The building was almost a mirror image of the one where Dryden got killed. She didn't want to think about it, or about giving weapons to prisoners. If by some miracle she survived this hell, she was certainly losing rank, busted down to corporal if she was lucky. They ran down a long corridor, their footsteps echoing off the walls. Serene kept glancing over her shoulder, expecting to see Reapers at any moment. Tara turned the corner first and skidded to a stop. Serene tried to process why the calcinite had stopped. Then she noticed the electronic veins coursing through the glass walls. Tara suddenly looked very frightened. "Stay back," she said. "Sif?" Serene's eyes darted between the 2 glowing walls. "Give me a sec." Sif's fingers pounded at her tablet. Neon red lights appeared, crisscrossing in the section where Tara was standing. "A laser grid," Casimir whispered. Serene could see that. They all could. One wrong move and Tara would be dissected into 100 pieces. "Sif, can you do anything?" "I'm no hacker," said Sif, eyeing Casimir Trey. "Let's double back," said Emile. "Those Reapers might be here any second." Serene turned on Emile, her nostrils flaring. "We are not doubling back. We're going to get her out of there." Emile gave Serene a familiar smile, a smile laced with cruelty. "How are we going to do that, Captain?" Casimir Trey pointed to a black oblong device attached to the wall on the other side of the laser grid. "That device probably controls the grid. Destroy it and the laser should deactivate." Serene looked around. "Can anyone make the shot?" Both Emile, Sif, and Casimir Trey shook their heads. Jareth shrugged. "I'm good, but not that good." Desperate, Serene looked at Jopel. The Lycan only glared at her with his angry red eyes. "Don't worry, Warden," said Tara, a hint of a smile on her small lips. "Give me a couple of seconds." The calcinite slipped Sif's pistol into her prisoner belt. Serene's mouth almost dropped open in utter astonishment. Watching Tara was like watching water flow around rocks in a stream, fluid and natural. Tara crouched, her nimble form folding like rubber, muscles flexing beneath her light fur. Tara's body contorted again, her spine curving like a whip, every tendon tuned to the laser's hum. Each red beam was a red-hot line of death, ready to slice through Tara's flesh, yet Tara slid and angled her body around the lasers as if they were nothing more than harmless beams of light. Barely a minute later, Tara stood on the other side of the grid, raising her gray arms in victory. Serene almost applauded. Instead, she pointed at the small black device on the wall behind Tara.
Tara nodded and strode over to the device, removing Sif's pistol as she moved. She aimed the pistol at the device and fired. The laser grid disappeared. Serene sighed inwardly, grateful that no one died. She was so focused on Tara's predicament, she let her guard down and paid the price. The attack came suddenly and without mercy, like death. 5 Reapers burst into the corridor, plasma bolts leading the way. Their plasma shots painted the corridor with deadly streaks of light. Only Tara had time to run, but she didn't. Defiance, perhaps, or a death wish. It was hard to tell. Her aim was good, but one laser blast wasn't enough to take down a Reaper. Their battle suits were that tough. The Reapers pounced on them like locusts. One burly Reaper grabbed Casimir Trey, his iron grip sinking into the hacker's shoulder. He shoved a small pistol into Casimir Trey's back, but before he could pull the trigger, Jopel swatted him away. The Lycan didn't stop there. He hoisted the armored invader off the floor with a growl and slammed him into another Reaper, sending both Reapers crashing to the floor. Serene dodged a fist to the face. Barely. She countered by slashing her rifle across the Reaper's faceplate, leaving a gash. He caught Serene with a punch to the sternum. The impact stole her breath and sent her sprawling backward onto the cold floor. She lost her grip and couldn't stop her rifle from skidding to the floor. The Reaper raised his rifle to shoot her. Jareth was faster. The butt of his rifle crunched against the back of the Reaper's helmet, staggering him sideways. Jareth's rifle roared, obliterating the Reaper's head. His blood sprayed the sterile walls and spattered Serene's uniform. Jareth's voice sliced through the chaos. "Get up!" he hissed. Jareth pulled Serene up roughly by the arm. Further down the corridor, a raging Jopel lay on top of a Reaper, mauling him with his claws. Emil traded blows with a Reaper who towered over him. Emil was faster, but he was no match for the Reaper's knee strike. The Reaper spun around, his razor knife gleaming. He jumped on top of Jopel's back, knife first. Jopel howled. No, she refused to let another one of her charges die. Serene snatched up a rifle from the floor and blasted that damn Reaper. Jareth joined in, their bullets hammering into Jopel's attacker's body. The Reaper convulsed under the hail of bullets until he finally collapsed. Jopel wasn't moving either. Damn. Serene looked around the tight corridor. Tara was okay. Emil was getting back up, and Sif. Serene's heart caught in her throat as she stumbled over to Casimir Trey. Corporal Sif's head lay in his lap, her black eyes, soulless, stared blankly at the ceiling lights. Serene closed her eyes, fighting the sick, shaky feeling in the pit of her stomach. She refused to open her eyes even when she felt Emil move closer to her. "This is your fault, Lynx." 2 more people dead. Emil's words sat in Serene's veins like blades of ice. Worse, he was right. Chapter 12. He was going to die today. Kijani knew it. If he didn't find a way to hack into this Alliance database, he was absolutely going to die. Musako would kill him, sooner rather than later. Musako busied himself with his wristcom holo display, monitoring Dragon and Banshee squads. But the commander was also keeping an eye on him as Kijani worked feverishly at the lab's main terminal. He had accepted the Reaper's fate when he signed up, but he didn't want to die in Alliance space simply because Musako was working a side hustle, and Musako was unquestionably working a hustle. Retrieving data from an Alliance black site was not their scheduled mission. The lab itself was sterile and impersonal. Aside from the cluttered workstations, the room was barren. Whoever worked here left in a hurry. Kijani squinted at the lines of code scrolling upward on the holo screen, his fingers flying across a virtual keyboard as he attempted to crack the fortress's data systems. The Alliance thought differently, and their alien logic was reflected in their coding patterns. Their firewalls were convoluted, messy. Didn't matter. There wasn't a system in this galaxy he couldn't break.
A holographic form shimmered into existence between him and Musako. Kajani turned, pretty much gaping. He had never seen a female so utterly stunning. Whoever she was, her body looked like it was carved from glass, her curves a damn symphony of stars. She smiled at Kajani, but her eyes were as cold as deep space. "Get back to work," hissed Musako. Kajani reluctantly turned away and did what he was told. He kept his ears open, though.
"Is everything all right, Commander?" the strange female purred. "I was starting to worry that the rumors about Reapers were overblown, and you and your soldiers were swallowed up by the jungle."
"I lost 7 soldiers thanks to you, Talmanaka," said Musako. Talmanaka. What a strange, beautiful name. Kajani filed it in the back of his mind as Musako continued. "Why didn't you turn off the defenses here?"
"I'm so embarrassed. The researchers must have activated the site's auto defenses before they left. It's standard procedure when evacuating an Emryon facility. I didn't think to warn my people. Please forgive me." From what Kajani could see in his peripheral vision, Musako's scowl had only deepened. "I have no further use for you." Musako waved a dismissive hand at Talmanaka. "You may go." Typical Musako. Kajani's attention snapped back to what he actually should be doing, hacking into the Black Site's systems. There, finally. He managed to spoof the firewall into a reset, and now he had full access to the Alliance's research and development files. He typed in a download command into the terminal's interface, grateful that the military made it mandatory to learn the Garexian alphabet. Numbers and folders flashed quickly on the hollow display screen. A folder titled Symbiote caught Kajani's eye. Kajani paused the download and opened the folder. There appeared to be hundreds of files inside the folder, but the one titled Caverns piqued his interest. "While you're downloading the data," Talmanaka said, "you may want to finish off those annoying Alliance wardens." "I already shot them down," Musako said. "Find someone else to dispose of your miscreants." "Here's the thing, Musako," Talmanaka's words cut like ice. "The wardens downloaded the symbiote data. If the wardens escape, your little tactical advantage over the Alliance goes poof." From the few files Kajani skimmed through, the symbiotes appeared to be intelligent creatures native to this moon, with skin that was impervious to lasers and ballistic weapons. This made Kajani's heart race with excitement until a message bar slid onto his screen. He tapped it twice and froze. "Musako," the message read, "will kill you after you download the data for him." Kajani looked over his shoulder at Talmanaka. She acted like he didn't exist, concentrating her condescension on Musako. "All right," said Musako, his voice surprisingly jovial. "I'll kill the wardens for you." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. I'm coming for you next." Talmanaka considered him for several moments, then glanced at Kajani before turning a cold smile on Musako. "I feared as much. Better hurry, though. The Alliance fleet will surely be here within an hour or so. Plus," Talmanaka let the threat hang in the air, "you still need to navigate the Citadel's defenses." Citadel? Kajani was surprised that a black site had a name, even a generic one. He dismissed the message on his screen with a flick of his fingers. Didn't matter if Talmanaka or someone else sent him the warning. There was no way Musako was going to let Kajani live now that he knew Musako was in bed with the Alliance, and it seemed like he wanted the information about the symbiotes for himself. There was other valuable information here, too. Looks like they were developing an urban population control system called Cross. Kajani frowned. If what he was looking at was correct, this entire fortress was equipped with the Cross system. "Are you done yet?" Kajani was glad that his helmet faceplate was down. "Almost." Kajani picked up his tablet and stepped over to Musako, who had made the mistake of removing his helmet. Perhaps his cooling unit had been damaged during their battle with the turrets.
Kajani pushed that thought from his mind. He didn't want to think of poor Fadoom and his missing leg, and Musa Ko shooting him to make a goddamn point. Kajani nodded respectfully and offered his tablet to Musa Ko. "Can you check and make sure I'm downing the right thing?" Musa Ko shook his head in disgust and reached for the tablet. As Musa Ko took it from him, Kajani caught him in the face with a sucker punch, busting his nose. Musa Ko staggered backward, hand clamped on his bleeding nose. Kajani pressed his advantage by kicking Musa Ko's left leg out from under him. Musa Ko hit the floor with a smack, his armor softening most of the fall. Kajani pulled his rifle from his back scabbard and shoved it against Musa Ko's face. "Time to die, you filthy bastard!" A plasma blast knocked Kajani off Musa Ko, knocking the wind out of him. Damn, he should have known another Reaper would be nearby. A second plasma bolt hissed past Kajani, superheating the air as it seared into the terminal behind him. Kajani snatched up his tablet and lobbed a flash grenade in the direction of the shooter and closed his eyes. Even with his eyes closed and his faceplate dimmed, Kajani was still temporarily blinded. The shooting had stopped, though, so that meant his attacker got the worst of it. Musa Ko was on his knees, cursing and patting the floor blindly with his hands. Kajani sprang to his feet and headed for Musa Ko to finish what he had started. The sound of boots pounding the floor made him stop. He'd never make it out, at least not that way. His fellow Reapers would hunt him down and kill him, unless he made it to the caverns. Kajani spun around and sprinted for the lab's side door, the sound of Musa Ko's enraged roars chasing him. Chapter 13. Jareth Morrow was born to disappoint, and during the latter half of his 34 years, Jareth had no trouble whatsoever disappointing anyone foolish enough to care about him. That was on them. He had learned as much on the streets, gone hungry on the streets too. Lots of fights, plenty of beatings, but he survived it. He always survived. Plenty of people called him selfish, but Jareth didn't care. If you weren't paying him or feeding him or screwing him, your opinion really didn't matter much. Besides, in the end, everyone is selfish, and being selfish was his best bet for not getting killed today. The corporal getting smoked was unsurprising, yet somehow the Garixian hacker had managed still not to die. The Lycan biting it so early was even more surprising and disappointing. He would have preferred the hotshot warden pilot's guts torn out instead. On the plus side, with Jopal gone, Jareth was now indisputably on top of the food chain, except for the Reapers. True, they were a bit sloppy, but still very good, which made it kind of exciting, in a sick kind of way, minus his aching shoulder and bruised ribs. Flesh against armor, never a good thing, not like he had much of a choice. "We need to speed this up," said the hotshot warden. "I know." Lynx kept her face straight ahead. "But we can only go so fast with all these damn traps." Lynx's voice sounded strained, meaning the warden captain was bound to make more mistakes. Hopefully she wouldn't die until she at least got him to the caverns. Jareth found himself enjoying the fruity protein bar he was chewing, which made the musty air bearable. The sweet plasma rifle he was carrying also brightened his spirits. His eyes continually scanned the shadows as the four of them hurried down an underground tunnel. Its walls were smooth and slick and lined with intermittent amber lights. Dark and gloomy, the tunnels were the exact opposite of the bleached whiteness of the upper levels, and a little creepy. Jareth was surprised that the two wardens managed to keep their footsteps so light, afraid of stepping on another booby trap. Actually, so was he. Unfortunately, the Reapers wouldn't be far behind them, and since those creeps had battle armor, they weren't as risk-averse to setting off the Citadel's defenses. Reminding Jareth of how the Citadel's defense systems were so strange, Jareth couldn't deny its effectiveness. Hell, it had killed 4 of them already, but something else kept nagging him. He felt like they were almost being herded. Jareth found himself frowning when they reached a dead end. A hexagonal hatch lined the wall.
Lynx stepped to the side. "Get that open," she ordered the hacker. The Garexian hacker bowed like she was royalty, earning him a glare from the warden captain. He pulled Sif's tablet from his belt, crouched down beside the hatch, and got to work. Jareth leaned against the cold wall, the thrum of the Citadel's machinery against his back. To his left, the warden pilot glared at him. "What are you doing?" the warden pilot sneered, "besides looking ugly?" Jareth let his eyes roam up and down the hotshot warden, totally unimpressed. "Got any breath sticks?" The warden raised his rifle to smack Jareth, but Lynx's warning stopped him short. "Leave him alone, Emil." The hotshot warden turned on her. "It's not like you're going to teach him any manners." "That's not my job, or yours." He laughed at her. "Oh, that's right, Captain. It's your job to come up with plans that will get us killed." Guilt flashed in Lynx's eyes. One glance at Tara confirmed that Tara saw it too. Jareth almost felt sorry for her. But that wouldn't do. Once Lynx's purpose was served, she'd have to go. Not before he took down this idiot, though. "Got it." The hacker stood up as the metal hatch groaned and slid open, bisecting from its middle. Lynx started to duck toward the open hatch, but the warden pilot grabbed her by the arm. She snatched her arm away, glaring at him. "Let a prisoner go first." "That's not their job." Lynx looked ready to butt-stroke the warden with her rifle. "And don't tell me what to do, Lieutenant." "Party time, kids." Jareth raised his newly acquired rifle as the others turned around in horror. A giant stone chiseled into an inverted triangle floated toward them. An eerie, glowing green light pulsated in its center. "Tara," said Jareth, aiming his rifle at the thing. "Cover Casimir while he climbs through. Then join him. Wardens, don't tell me what to do, prisoner." The warden pilot aimed his rifle at the hacker. "Move it." The hacker nodded and scurried through the hole. Hotshot pilot went next. Lynx had positioned herself to the stone's right, so now they were flanking it from both sides as it floated closer. Its green eye glowed brighter. A beam of green light streaked toward Jareth. He tucked and rolled to the floor. He sprang back to his feet and started firing. In his peripheral vision, Jareth could see a splash of ice on the wall where he had been standing seconds ago. Their lasers ricocheted off the floating stone, having absolutely zero effect. Jareth and Lynx kept firing at it anyway, both of them continually moving as not to get hit with an ice beam. Jareth felt a cold sheen of sweat breaking out under his prison uniform despite the plummeting temperature. He kept firing at the damn thing and got sloppy, and stumbled. As he tried to catch his balance, he saw the stone shoot a beam of green light directly at him. This was it. His dance was over. Something barreled into him, knocking him out of the death ray's trajectory. Jareth fell hard, almost losing his grip on his rifle. Lynx got back up without meeting his gaze and started firing again. A stray shot hit the stone in the eye, and it stopped shooting. Its pulsing green light began to slow down. Just a little bit. Still noticeable, though. "That's it!" Lynx cried. "Shoot the eye!" For once, Jareth did what he was told. Lynx's aim was good, but his was better. 3 shots later, the stone's green eye went out. Soon the thing began wobbling, then dropped to the ground. Its inverted tip shattered into small chunks. "Let's go." Lynx, breathing hard, hurried over to the hatch and slipped through. Jareth took one more look at the damaged triangle, shook his head, and joined Lynx on the other side of the hatch. Pay dirt. They made it to the cavern. He thought it would be dark and gloomy, but the place practically glowed like a watercolor nightmare. Gold, green, purple, the luminescence seemed to come from the rock itself. Jareth couldn't stop his body from tensing or his eyes from trying to pierce the shadows, a habit he learned from the streets that saved his life more than once. "This is amazing." Jareth had never seen the Garexian hacker so excited before. Casimir waved the dead corporal's tablet around like he was a kid in an amusement park. Tara folded her arms and narrowed her eyes at the hacker, but Jareth could tell that she wanted to smile.
Even the hotshot warden pilot looked half amused. "Calm down, Casimir Trey," said Lynx, her tone uncharacteristically light. A sudden movement from the corner of his eye made Jareth tense up. A phosphorescent blue mass swooped down from the depths of the cavern toward them. Instinct drove Jareth's hand to his rifle, his fingers tightening around the cold grip as he pivoted his weapon toward the latest threat. It wasn't a blob as he initially thought, more akin to bioluminescent sea creatures, bloated and twisted. "Drop the tablet!" The warden pilot's voice ripped through the air, raw with alarm. "No way!" The hacker aimed the tablet at whatever the hell those things were. "I'm getting a shot of this. Fame or fortune, one's coming my—" The hacker's sentence ended with a blood-curdling shriek as the luminescent creatures descended on the tablet and surged down his arm. "Help me!" Lynx, ever the warden, lunged toward him, but her pilot yanked her back. She twisted in his grip, raising a fist to hit the pilot. "Serene!" Damn fool sounded like he was begging. "There's nothing we can do. He's done for." Their gazes were drawn back to the hacker, still struggling but no longer screaming. What Jareth could see of him, the things were eating him down to the bone. "We've got to get out of here," said Warden Pilot, giving the hacker wide berth as he passed him. "Switch off any tech or ditch it. I think those things are attracted to power emissions." Serene shot worried glances at Jareth and Tara, then gestured for them to follow her. Good. Once those things finished with the hacker, they might come after them next. The hacker dropped to the ground, and that swarm was still all over him, buzzing. Jareth thought he was going to be sick. Not because of the hacker's gruesome death. He had witnessed plenty of horrible deaths before, some caused by him. No, the sickness threatening him was because he actually felt pity for Casimir. The fact that he felt anything at all, now that was truly frightening. Chapter 14. Serene kept the numbness and the cold she was feeling from her eyes. At least she hoped she was. Her shoulder was still aching, and she suspected she might have a fractured rib or two. They had put a good 20 standard minutes between them and the Citadel. She had no clue how to escape this cavern, since something inside the rocks appeared to be interfering with her datapad signal. 4 people left. 2 prisoners, 2 wardens. Serene would place her bet on Jareth and Tara should they decide to attack her and Emil. Was that why she was trailing behind them, or was it because Jareth had a nice butt? Serene cut that train of thought short. She didn't do coworkers. She sure as hell wouldn't date criminals. She needed a plan, something that would discourage the convicts from attacking them. She seriously doubted that promises of a warden rescue team showing up would convince them, since they probably wouldn't be too excited about being sent off to a penal colony again. Serene took a swig from her canteen. Not too much, even though she was still thirsty. Yes, she could hear running water somewhere, but who knew if it would be any good to drink? Shouldn't be a problem if the wardens ever showed up. She was starting to think they never would. The damp chill of the chamber they just entered prickled Serene's skin as they hurried deeper into the cavern. The only good thing about this situation was the fact that the chamber, like the rest of the cavern, offered natural lighting. Beautiful place if she gave a crap enough to think about it. Lime green hues, purple, gold. Maybe she should let Emil take the lead. Goddess knows he wanted to. Not being able to save Beaumary was bad. Watching those things swarm all over Casimir Trey. Serene shook her head. This nightmare never ended. Even if it did, the image of Casimir Trey being eaten alive was forever imprinted on her eyes. The 4 of them were walking in a staggered formation when they heard a shout. "Make a hole, Alliance scum!" Before any of them could get their weapons up, a Reaper burst into the cave and plowed right through them. Cursing under her breath, Serene raised her rifle and fired at the fleeing Reaper. From the glimpses she saw of him, his face was ebony dark with ridges on his jawline. Jareth fired too, until Tara's shouts snapped them back to the real threat.
More incoming! Tara laid down suppressive fire near the cave's opening. Serene wasn't surprised that the calcinite was good with hand weapons. Emil fired at the opening too. Too bad that didn't stop the Reapers from charging in. Laser blasts and plasma fire sliced through the air, mostly from the Reapers. Damn, their armor must be laser-resistant. 2 Reapers vaulted into the chamber, firing as they leapt. Plasma blasts scoured the air centimeters above Serene's head. Aim for the roof! Jareth dodged an oncoming Reaper by a hair's breadth. Still in motion, he slammed the cave's roof entrance with laser fire. Are you stupid or what? Emil blasted several rounds into a Reaper's face, dropping him. You'll bring the cave down on our heads too! He's right, Jareth. Serene saddled up to Tara's position and fired, hopefully giving the Reapers pause, if not completely dissuading them from entering the cave. They still needed to deal with the 2 Reapers who got in. The second Reaper swung his rifle like a bat and almost brained Tara. Her lightning reflexes saved her, but only just. Emil shot the Reaper in the back. The Reaper stumbled forward but caught his balance. He reached for Tara but was too slow. She crouched down and kicked his legs out from under him. Emil unloaded his rifle into the Reaper's chest. The Reaper cried out, then stopped moving completely. That still left 1 Reaper somewhere ahead of them, and goddess knows how many pulling up the rear. We've got to run for it. Jareth stopped firing and looked at her, considering. He gave her a crooked smile and nodded. Serene held up 3 fingers and counted down. For some reason, Jareth let her go first. There was no time to argue, so she let him continue holding the Reapers off and rushed over to Emil and Tara. Jareth joined them seconds later. Let's go. They ran for it. Serene did her best to ignore the new pain in her right leg. They hadn't made it 10 kilometers before the chamber split into 2 separate tunnels. Serene could hear the sound of moving water nearby coming from the tunnel on the left. It was much narrower than the one on the right. Serene gestured for everyone to go left, but Tara stood her ground and glared at her. I'm done with you getting us all killed. You coming, Jareth? Jareth's grim smile said yes, but he didn't make any effort to move. His gaze shifted over to Serene and back to Tara. Good luck. Emil stepped up and pointed his pistol at Tara's head. You're not going anywhere. So stop me. Tara shot Jareth one last look and sauntered toward the right tunnel. Emil's grip tightened on his pistol. Serene placed a gentle hand on top of his. He shot her a look, hate in his eyes. If we live through this, I'm making sure you lose rank. Serene felt like saying that was a big if, but she kept her mouth shut. No sense in making a terrible situation worse. All 3 of them turned as one. The sound of boots pounding the ground grew louder. The Reapers had found them. Without another word, the 3 of them darted down the left passageway and were oh so sorry for it. The Reaper who had run past them spun around, his plasma rifle aimed at them. He was standing near a cliff. His dark expression looked almost amused. We need to double back, unless you feel like jumping off a cliff. We? Serene heard herself say. She had her rifle aimed at his head since he wasn't wearing a helmet. You're a Reaper. Was a Reaper? Doesn't matter. Jareth slapped a new magazine into his rifle to emphasize his point. Emil had the Reaper in his sights as well. The Reaper's lips spread into a cocky grin, reminding Serene of Jareth. He didn't lower his weapon, though. Let's smoke him. Emil raised his rifle to eye level. Laser fire and a scream stopped him from firing. It sounded like Tara. Serene wanted to feel sorry for the calcinite, but Tara had made her choice. The Reaper wagged a finger in their direction, pointing to what was coming from behind them. Reapers. Thank the heavens they were entering the tunnel in stack formation, one behind the other. Otherwise, they would be dead right now if they all piled in at once. Maybe losing so many of their comrades made them gun-shy, but Serene doubted it. Splashes of plasma fire knifed through the air, leaving Serene and the others scrambling. Serene tripped over something and fell hard. Scrambling to her feet, she saw what she tripped over. Emil, bleeding from his right side. Jareth, help me!
Serene rushed back to Emil and struggled to get him to his feet. Jareth pulled Emil up from the other side. Relief washed over her. She really didn't expect the convict to help her. "Nice meeting you." Serene looked up in time to see the Reaper leap off the cliff. Damn, they were trapped, but they were also so close to the cliff, which wasn't really any better. "Bum rush them, fools!" a harsh voice shouted from the entrance. Serene tried to walk faster. Whoever was in charge caught on to the fact that stack formation was stupid for a situation like this. "Just leave me." Emil could barely lift his head.
"No one is leaving you."
"Yeah," said Jareth, "'cause we're all dying here." Serene refused to believe that, even though she dropped her rifle back when she was lifting Emil up, even with the Reapers only meters away. Serene forced herself to look down. A murky body of water lay at the bottom of the cliff. Serene swallowed a gasp when her brain realized it was at least 30 meters down.
"Feet first."
She shoved Emil off the cliff. Murder, plain and simple, or their last chance.
"Go,"
she told Jareth. She pulled out her laser pistol and started firing at the Reapers. Jareth grabbed her around the waist and flung them both off the cliff. Serene screamed and fell like a rock. She plunged into the water with a giant splash. Momentarily stunned and totally disoriented, Serene began thrashing her hands and feet. Her eyes were open, she hoped, but the water was so cloudy she couldn't see much. She tried clawing her way up, even though she wasn't sure which way was up. The water felt warm, but so heavy. It was difficult moving her limbs, and her shoulder was killing her, and something wasn't quite right with her ankle. Her lungs screamed for air. As her vision blurred, Serene felt a strong grip on her arm. Instinct made her pull away, or at least she tried to. Whatever had grabbed her, though, was stronger. Something jerked her to the water's surface. Serene gulped as much air into her lungs as she could. Jareth, wet hair plastered on his head, floated next to her, watching her. She had no idea why the convict had saved her. She doubted Emil would. Serene whipped her head around.
"Emil!"
Not 5 meters from her, Emil frowned at Serene as he struggled to keep his head above water. He wasn't soaked like her and Jareth, with only a smattering of water droplets over his starry blue face. A sudden move to her left caused Serene to snap her head around to see the latest danger. The Reaper looked back at her with suspicious dark eyes as he treaded water. He let out a yelp and was dragged under. Serene started to swim toward him, but Jareth grabbed her leg. She kicked hard despite her injured ankle.
"Let go."
He didn't, only pulled her closer. "He's a Reaper." Jareth was right, but she couldn't. Serene's heart raced as she looked around.
"Where's Emil?"
"We need to get to the shore." Jareth's voice was way too calm. "Can you swim?" Serene shook her head. Not because she couldn't swim. She could, even with a hurt shoulder and ankle, but she couldn't just leave Emil. She took a deep breath, readying herself to go under, and almost screamed. Something had latched onto her leg and was yanking her down. Her laser knife, if only she could get to it, but it was already too late. Heart beating so fast, Serene struggled against the thing that had grabbed her leg and was now eating her whole, ripping away her clothes with its teeth. Serene shivered as the creature covered her body with something that almost felt like metal, smothering her. Panic clawed at Serene's mind as she was pulled down further. There was nothing she could do. She was dying and, so very scared, she completely forgot about trying to save anyone else. The others. Jareth came to her mind unbidden. She could almost taste his alertness, tangy and carved into him as a street kid. A cascade of Emil's disappointments flooded her flailing mind next, never achieving his father's approval, the beatings. None of this made sense to her. Her body was shutting down, imagining things. Even the Reaper, smart, always trying to enjoy himself despite the Cyrax's stifling laws. Pain drove those thoughts away. Her skin was on fire, and her veins. Instinct took over.
Serene struggled and reached for the surface only to be pulled further down into the water. She couldn't breathe, had to breathe. Water rushed into her nostrils. And finally, when she couldn't thrash or struggle anymore, her body accepted the inevitable. Death. Serene sensed them before she heard them. Reapers. They weren't bothering to hide their footsteps. "Find them," growled a familiar harsh voice, "and kill them if they're not dead already." Serene felt a sudden chill, reminding her that she wasn't dead. Yet. Serene lifted her head with effort and forced her eyes open. She was lying on moist soil with the gummy green water in front of her and the cliff she jumped from overhead. Her body felt strange, but the pain in her shoulder was gone, same with her ankle. Serene touched her arm unconsciously and jerked her hand back. Her uniform was gone, replaced by a gray sepia color, metal of some kind. No, it was too flexible for that. It felt more like a polymer graphite exosuit, only organic. Groans from nearby caused Serene to whip her head around. She was flanked by 3. Serene jumped to her feet, ready to strike, until her brain clicked with recognition. Jareth, Emil, and the Reaper were wearing battle armor. No, not battle armor, some kind of second skin, just like hers. The skin flaring on top of their heads looked like a helmet mated with a firewolf or dragon. Serene allowed her eyes to roam over their bodies. Nice muscle tone and very little left to one's imagination. Even Emil, who was totally not her type, looked good enough to rub against. That thought disturbed her. More disturbing, though, was the fact that Emil wasn't bleeding anymore, just staring at her, his nostrils flaring. Jareth and the Reaper were staring at her too, a mixture of ownership and hunger in their eyes. They were stealing glances at each other too, as if they were deciding whom to fight first. Over her? A revolting thought. And somehow, natural. A strange noise caught Serene's attention. She and the others turned their heads toward the sound as one. Reapers. At least a squad of them by the sound of it. In less than a standard minute, the Reapers would see them. "Expect 2 opponents at a time," the Reaper said. No, he wasn't a Reaper anymore. This was Kijani, and he was part of her cluster. A part of her wondered what the hell a cluster was and why she felt so refreshed, invigorated. Didn't matter. The 4 of them spread out. Emil dashed up the incline, drawing the Reaper's fire. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air. Emil was too fast for them, giving Serene time to scan the chamber with new eyes. So incredibly beautiful. Her home, singing with vibrant gold, purple, and lime hues that cast dancing shadows over the chamber's rocky walls. 2 Reapers charged down the rocky slope after Emil, firing their plasma rifles, while their fellow Reapers attempted to flank them. Emil darted past a large stalagmite that was as thick and tall as a small tree. The Reapers were hot on Emil's heels. Jareth sprung from around the stalagmite and slammed into the Reapers, sending their weapons flying as they tried to break their fall. Emil whirled around and pounced on the Reaper nearest him. He slashed the Reaper across the torso, leaving deep gashes that immediately started oozing blood. Serene looked down at her hand and felt a sick, shaky feeling in the pit of her stomach. Her fingers were just like Emil's, still fingers, but sharp like claws. Jareth, seated firmly on a struggling Reaper's chest, snatched up the Reaper's rifle and shot him in the face point blank. Blood and metal splattered everywhere. Green plasma blasts hit Jareth center mass. He rolled off the Reaper, grinning, and then started firing back. 3 Reapers surrounded Serene, something that would have had her pissing in her pants an hour ago. Now she felt little more than anxious calm as they started shooting at her. The first plasma bolt hit her in the leg, another slammed into her chest. It's not like she didn't feel anything. She did, but it wasn't exactly painful or deadly like it should be. It didn't take long for the Reapers to realize that their weapons had no real effect, so the 3 Reapers moved in for the kill the old-fashioned way. Serene knew that she was a competent fighter when it came to hand-to-hand combat, but she certainly wasn't a great one.
A Reaper reached for her while a second Reaper hit her with a solid sidekick. Serene staggered and almost lost her balance. This gave the first Reaper a chance to sweep in and grab her. He hefted Serene off her feet by the throat with a single hand. Serene coughed, desperate for air. She lashed out and raked her claws down the Reaper's faceplate, gouging it. She then slammed both her fists against the sides of his helmet. He let go. The third Reaper shot her with several plasma bursts, while his partner swung his rifle at Serene's head. Serene ducked and hit the Reaper with an uppercut to the liver. Her hand should have shattered upon impact, but her new skin protected her against the Reaper's armor. The new alien skin that overlapped her own soft flesh seemed to make her stronger, faster. For the first time since landing here on Hersu's moon, Serene felt more like a predator instead of prey. The Reaper dropped to his knees. His two friends took his place, swinging their meaty fists at Serene as they tried to corner her. She crouched down and slid between one Reaper's legs. Springing up behind him moments later, she rammed her knee into the back of his leg, causing his entire leg to buckle. Serene shoved him hard into his partner. Both went sprawling to the ground. Plasma blasts pelted her back. Serene wasn't surprised. Kijani had said that Reapers work in pairs. She spun around and threw herself at the fourth Reaper, twisting enough for her legs to wrap around his back and pull him along with her as she tumbled backward. Serene sprang back to her feet and kicked the Reaper aside his head and shot him in the face with his own laser pistol. Another Reaper slammed into her, but there was just enough momentum for her to make certain that he crashed into the stalagmite first. Dazed, his arms flailed. Before he could recover, Serene smashed his face forward. Blood and metal now stained the stalagmite. Someone threw an arm around her neck and smacked her in the back with an uppercut. Serene gasped, then plowed an elbow into her attacker's gut. Stunned, he stepped back. Serene sent him spinning to the ground with a high kick. She snatched up a discarded rifle and shot the Reaper in the throat as he struggled to get up. He folded to the ground, a bloody mess. Panting, Serene looked around the chamber. Dark crimson blood and Reapers stained the cavern floor. Exhaustion and hunger seized her as she scanned for the others. Jareth and Emil were nearby and were kneeling beside bloodied Reapers. What were they doing with the bodies? Serene's attention focused on Kijani. She had been wrong. There was one Reaper left. He was a towering fighter, both wide and heavily muscled. His gray-white face sported tattoos and bruises, yet he held Kijani off with a thick blade and a sneer. "Your pretty little costume doesn't suit you, Kijani." He thrusted his blade at Kijani's chest. Kijani slapped the hand down. The Reaper followed up with a knee strike, but Kijani blocked it by lifting his leg. The Reaper smiled and slashed his knife at Kijani's face. Kijani deflected the blow, but got caught with a crushing leg chop to his calf. Kijani buckled to one knee. The Reaper jammed his foot at Kijani's face. Kijani spun out of the way and retaliated with a swift high kick to the Reaper's face. A low kick sent the Reaper falling face first. Kijani fell on top of the Reaper, elbows first. The Reaper cried out in pain. Kijani sat up and clawed at the back of the Reaper's head until the Reaper stopped moving. Kijani flipped him over and rammed his fist through the Reaper's chest. That was disturbing enough. It got worse when Kijani simply left his hand inside the Reaper's chest. Kijani's dark face looked almost blissful as the second skin on his arm turned a dark red. Revulsion twisted inside Serene's stomach. The skin, or armor, or whatever the hell you'd call it, was absorbing the Reaper's blood. Serene's eyes immediately went to Emil. He was doing the same thing. He looked like he was enjoying it. "Drink." Serene whirled around, claws ready. She didn't think Jareth wanted to hurt her, but she was annoyed that he had managed to sneak up on her. He was holding something out to her, dripping with blood. Serene felt bile rise in her mouth. It was somebody's heart. Almost as disconcerting, Jareth's second skin was now the color of blood. "Drink," Jareth repeated. Serene shook her head. A part of her wanted this blood, yearned for it. She had to resist. Their second skin wasn't just armor, it was somehow changing them, turning them into predators, monsters who drink people's blood. Jareth grabbed Serene by the shoulder and forced the organ against her mouth. Sweet, rich juices slipped past her lips and down her throat. She shoved Jareth away from her, feeling energized and hungry for more blood despite herself. "Stand down, Captain Lynx." Jareth and Serene turned toward the voice as one. Emil and Kijani rose from their meal. She kept her eyes on the Warden General, but she could feel Emil and Kijani getting ready to strike. Lieutenant General Zaid let his eyes roam down Serene's body appreciatively. He offered her a warm smile, but there was a coldness to it. Zaid looked to his right. "Have your people lower their weapons." His officer looked unsure. "But sir, do it!" The headquarters commander's eyes were back on Serene and Jareth. "We're here to rescue you, Captain." Serene showed him her claws. "You're too late." Chapter 15. Talmanaka was a different kind of spider. Yes, she certainly spun webs of destruction and lies. Then again, so did he. Lieutenant General Zaid Armentary leaned back in his ready room chair and waited for the ship's comm officer to put the Emryon consultant through. Talmanaka, no surname. Zaid smiled. What made Talmanaka different was her strategic mind. From his experience thus far, the Valerianin never left anything to chance. Talmanaka's image flickered into the chair opposite his desk. Even in hollow form, her beauty bordered on startling. She leaned forward slightly, just enough to give him a peek at the treasures beneath her vest. "General," Talmanaka gushed, "I hope all is well after your terrible battle with that Reaper destroyer." Predictable. He knew she would bring the matter up. "We took care of it." "As I knew you would." A mock frown crossed her translucent lips. "My condolences for losing one of your frigates, and there's absolutely no reason you should feel ashamed for losing so many lives on your second ship as well." Zaid didn't grace her with a frown. If her opening salvo was passive-aggressive banter, so be it. Obviously, she had been monitoring the battle from her Sue's moon. Thankfully, he had the foresight to bring 3 frigates, otherwise the Reapers would have destroyed them. Still, losing a frigate and having another barely limping grated on one's ego. "Thank you for the vote of confidence," Zaid graced Talmanaka with a thin smile. She smiled back at him and crossed her long legs. Her sculpted body was almost as dangerous as her calculating mind. What Talmanaka didn't know was that she reminded Zaid of a spider, a glass spider, dangerous yet easily broken. However, for the moment, Talmanaka was proving quite useful for his purposes, not unlike Serene Lynx and her fellow symbiotes. He wondered if Talmanaka knew about his new treasure. Honestly, he hadn't expected Lynx to last, which was one of the reasons he chose her for the mission. And now he had 4 test subjects, including an actual Reaper. It almost made Zaid giddy to think about how just 4 people merged with symbiotes could destroy 2 squads of Reapers. Delicious. "Shall we get down to business?" Zaid offered. "Certainly. My team sent you all the footage of the Reapers and Wardens struggling against our Cross live demo. Please tell me you were impressed." Zaid nodded, almost enjoying her game. "Your demonstration was satisfactory." Talmanaka clapped her hands in feigned relief. "So I should put your order through?" Zaid held up a hand. "I do not have the authority to give the go-ahead. However, I will recommend to the Wardens Guild that we purchase your system." "Sounds good, General." Talmanaka made no move to disconnect, just looked at him with those dreamy eyes. "I believe some of your people made it to the caves. Were you able to save them?" He was tempted to lie to her, but from what little he knew about Talmanaka, she would eventually find out. 2 wardens and a prisoner survived. "Well," she sighed,
That's almost better than your frigate survival rate. Ta-ta, General.
Zaid didn't allow himself to frown until Talmanaka's image winked out. He might have to get rid of the Emryon consultant one day, but for now, he had a new population control system. Even better than having the cross system installed on Garrix 5, he now had 4 symbiotes to play with. It wasn't easy convincing Lynx and her fellows not to attack him and his rescue team. If Captain Serene Lynx and her friends lasted long enough, he would send more wardens to Hersu's moon on the sly. And why not? An army of super soldiers could come in handy someday, especially when it's time to sweep out the spiders. If you enjoyed Blacksite, you're going to love Serene's next adventure in Wolves. Click the link in the first pinned comment below for your favorite book retailer. Blacksite, narrated by Tim Page, written by Savage Tempest, copyright 2023. The end.